Hi, I just wanted to make a second part of this discussion about faith being a decision because in the first video I forgot to give you examples from the Bible. I gave you examples from my personal life, but you might want to know some examples from the Bible about how some people decided that they were going to have their prayer answered by the Lord because they knew it was a reasonable request. They knew the Lord wanted to do it and they knew the Lord could do it. And actually, I have four examples. Let me see. Hold on a second here. I got to write one down before I forget. Okay. So, with a woman who had the issue of blood, um, she made a decision that once she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, she would be healed. And that was what her faith was based on. She made a decision that all she had to do, she knew that all she had to do was touch the hem of his garment. Now, her goal was a low goal because it was easy for her to do that. All she had to do was elbow her way through the crowd and touch that garment. Um, and anyone could do that. So she knew that she'd make people mad because they would see her as being rude by pushing ahead, and also they would see her as being rude because she was unclean. And by pushing through the crowd, everybody she touched, she was making unclean. And some of those people might have been wanting to go to the temple the next day or whatever, and she was making everybody she touched unclean. But she was willing to do that because she knew that her healing was more important than whether or not a bunch of people were unclean that day. She knew that ultimately her healing was more important because it had eternal consequences. You know, the uncleanness only had short term consequences. So she was willing to be rude and make people mad at her and to touch that garment. And so she's a woman who made a decision. And from the moment that she made that decision, she knew she was going to be healed. You see, that's how faith is. It really is a decision. You know that you know that you know because you've decided that you know. She decided while she was still at home that God would heal her, that he wanted to heal her, that he was capable of healing her, and she decided that he would heal her when she touched his garment. So another example is the blind men who were crying out. In one gospel it says like one blind man, and in another gospel I think it says two blind men, but nevertheless both stories are true, whether it was one or two. There was at least one blind man crying out, you know. When Jesus was passing with the crowd, and there was a blind man sitting down, and he said, "What's going on?" And the people around him told him, "Oh, Jesus is passing by." And he knew about Jesus. He knew that Jesus healed. And so he started crying out, whether it was one or two guys. He started crying out saying, I think he was saying son of God or son of man or son, I think he was saying son of David actually. He was saying, son of David, have mercy on me. And he kept, and the crowd was telling him, hey, be quiet, you're out of turn. And so he just cried louder, and he kept crying until Jesus heard him. And that, because he knew he had made a decision that once he got Jesus' attention, Jesus would respond and heal him. So he made a decision in his heart that he would be healed when Jesus heard his voice. And so that's why he cried louder and louder. He wouldn't let the crowd shut him up or drown his voice out. He made sure that his voice went above the crowd because he made a decision that when the Lord heard his voice, he would be healed. And he knew the character of the Lord. He knew that the Lord loved him, that the Lord had compassion, that the Lord had mercy, and that the Lord was fully capable of giving him his sight back. And so he got healed. He believed with all of his heart, and it was the decision that he made in his heart is kind of a way of describing how he believed. Just like when I believed with all my heart that my mom was going to give me that Valentine's candy, And I made the decision that all I had to do was tell her and keep reminding her every day until Valentine's. And I knew I was getting that candy, even if, like on the day that I came home from school and I didn't think she got it for me yet, I still was fully confident. It was still Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day wasn't over. I was fully confident that I was going to get that candy, even if it meant her and I getting in the car, driving to the grocery store so that she could buy it for me. That's what I was envisioning in my head when I didn't see the candy was already there in my bedroom. But I had made that decision that my mom could do it, had enough compassion on me to do it, um, and that it was a reasonable request, and that there's no reason why I shouldn't have it. You know, I really believed that I deserved the candy. Basically, is another way of putting it. That blind man believed that he deserved to be healed, and deserved is not really the right word because it sounds kind of self-seeking or self-serving, but it's the only human word I can come up with to describe what I'm trying to teach you. The woman with the issue of blood deserved that she would deserve that she should be healed, or believed that she deserved to be healed. So as I say again, deserved sounds very self-worshiping, but I just don't know of any other human word to explain what I'm trying to say. um, they all believed that they had it coming, and we do, because God is so loving, not because we're good in any way, but because God is good. That's why we have it coming. God is good. He keeps his promises. He's fully capable. He does have compassion on us. He is a merciful God, just like the blind man said, "Have mercy on me." The blind man said that because the blind man believed that Jesus was merciful. you know and you can't have an unmerciful person can't have mercy on you, but God can, because God really is merciful. The Samaritan woman, who, I think it was a Samaritan woman, she wanted Jesus to drive the demons out of her daughter who was at home. And Jesus said, "Why? um I'm here to serve the Israelites, and you're not an Israelite, and I can't give the dogs the children's food." And she said, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs get crumbs from the table." Even though they don't get the whole meal hot and juicy, they still get crumbs from the table. And so the Lord healed her daughter that at that very hour. And so the Samaritan woman believed Jesus was compassionate enough to heal even somebody who wasn't fully a Jew. And she had made a decision in her heart that once she spoke to Jesus and presented her case, he would heal her daughter. She knew he couldn't deny her argument, because she had made a decision in her heart that he wouldn't deny her argument. And her faith, he loved her faith. It was awesome. And she was willing to argue with the Lord, um, because she knew, she decided in her heart that he could, would, and should do it, you know. And when I say should, I don't mean that in disrespect to the Lord. What I mean is should, because the Lord is good. He is kind. He is awesome. He is merciful. He is gracious. And that's how I mean the word should. Not that he has to, but he should, because it's his character. Should as in a predictive. It's his character. So we can expect him to do that, you know? And then Jacob, when he had the dream and the angel, there was the staircase to heaven, and he wrestled with the angel all night. Jacob made a decision in his heart that angel, and some people think it was the Lord, which it could have been. Some of the wording in the Bible, you're never quite sure if it's Jesus or if it's an angel sometimes in the Old Testament. Jesus does show up in the Old Testament a lot, but he's never mentioned by name, so you're not always quite sure it's him. But anyway, we'll say that Jacob was wrestling an angel, and he made a decision in his heart that angel would not be allowed, who was representative of the Lord. So that's why Jacob said Lord, called him Lord. But that angel would not be allowed to leave him until it blessed him, until he was blessed by the Lord. So So he made a determination in his heart that that heavenly encounter could not end and would not end until he got his blessing. He wasn't going to let the Lord go until he got his blessing. And so he did what the Samaritan woman did. He basically argued with the Lord and said, "You're going to give me what I want because it's reasonable. It's in your will. You're fully capable of it. I know you love me." And the Lord had already blessed him 2 other times. Jacob already had 2 blessings before he wrestled with the Lord. Did you notice that? He already got Esau's birthright, and then he got Esau's blessing. He had already been blessed by the Lord twice, but it wasn't enough. Jacob determined in his heart, he made a decision in his heart that that wasn't enough and he needed another blessing. He needed a more blessing. He needed more confirmation from the Lord. Now, I'm not saying we all have to do that exactly, but whatever we have faith in, we do have to make a decision in our heart that it's coming to us. Not for selfish reasons, not for self worship reasons, but it's coming to us because it is God's will. So we have to know it's God's will, but it is God's will. He's fully capable. He loves us enough and he's kind enough and merciful enough to do it. The blind man believed that Jesus was merciful enough to heal him. And so that's what we all have to believe too, that Jesus is merciful enough to heal us, to drive the demons away out of our lives, out of us and out of our lives, that he's merciful enough to restore us, to give back what the locust took away, the locust being Satan and his host of demons. And he is merciful enough to do all that. So we just really need to make a decision that that's what we believe. Just like when we first believed that Jesus is Lord and that he died on the cross, we made a decision to believe it. We didn't have to sweat. We didn't have to cry. We didn't have to jump hoops. We didn't have to do anything but make a decision in our heart. And that was how we knew that Jesus is God and that he did die on the cross for us. And now in every walk of the Christian life, we make another decision to go deeper with the Lord. We make a decision to repent of our sins. Then we make a decision to believe that he'll heal us. Then we make a decision to believe he'll deliver us of all our demons. And we make a decision to believe that he's going to grow us. We make a decision to believe that he's alive inside of us. Everything, that's the best way I can explain faith, is that it's making a decision. And you really can't make that decision unless you know that you know that you know that you know that you know. And no one else can change your mind. Nothing can change your mind. And anyway, that's the faith that we all need. And that's the faith I'm trying to work on growing and having. And I'm asking myself in my own heart, do I really believe that Jesus can do this, wants to do it? It's in his will. And it's easy to know God's will. A lot of people think God's will is mysterious and, you got to pray for, 5 days to decide what God's will is on one thing or another. It isn't really that mysterious. His will is in the scripture. So anybody who claims they don't know the God's will, they just don't read the Bible because it's in there. His will is clearly laid out in the Bible. He wants us to obey him at all times, abstain from all sin. He wants his kingdom of heaven expanded. He wants more people saved. He wants more people in heaven, less people in hell. All of that is God's will. And anything that promotes any of those things is God's will. Does your healing promote the gospel and grow the kingdom? Absolutely. When you get healed, you have a testimony to share with others. Plus, it enriches the faith that you already have so that you can believe him for more things, like serving him, having deliverance from demons, everything else, praying for other people. So yes, your healing does grow his kingdom. It's in his will. If you get healed, are you sinning? No. It's in his will. Okay? So anything that's in his will, simply by reading the Bible. Now, in minute detail, we may not know if he wants us to turn right or left, and we'll have to wait on his voice and he will tell us. but we always know in a general sense what his will is. That the blind man knew in a general sense that the Lord would never want him to be blind. The Samaritan woman knew in a general sense that even though she wasn't a Jew, God still loved her. Even though she wasn't a full Jew, God still loved her, and he still wanted the demons out of her daughter. And Jacob knew that even though he had already been blessed twice, incredibly blessed twice, that God loved him enough to bless him a third time and to give him another confirmation for his life. And the woman with the issue of blood knew that she was not condemned for going to the physicians who took all of her money and never cured her, but that God loved her to heal her now, in spite of past failures, that he would heal her now. And anyway, so we just all need to ask ourselves, what do we know in our hearts? What have we decided in our hearts? And I'm asking myself that very same question. And God bless you. He's blessing me a lot, and I know he will bless you too, because that's his character. It isn't because we're great, it's because that's who he is. That's what he does. Okay, God bless you.